Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Intentwise Connect. I'm really excited today to be hosting Trevor Sumner. Trevor is an entrepreneur at heart. He has built multiple businesses, and this last one, is the founder and CEO of Perch Interactive, which is a leading digital shopper marketing platform. And many of you may have used in-store displays powered by Perch. Is that right, Trevor?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rethink Retail recognizes Trevor as one of the top 100 retail influencers of 2022. And today we will be talking about the future of retail media, especially in the context of physical stores. So Trevor, so good to have you, man.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. After running into each other at Shop Talk, and now it's really great to reignite a long friendship, and it's exciting to see how our two worlds are intersecting, from kind of online retail media to in-store shopper experience. The worlds are colliding.
Yeah, totally. And just for the benefit of the audience, quick anecdote: I think Trevor and I were in our first jobs together a long time ago. Distant memory, but a fun one.
Yeah, people are, I was like, oh, my first job was 25 years ago. 25, that's a big number. But wow, what a time. The first internet boom, a company called Trilogy in Austin. It was like, they're giving Porsches out for resume raffles at colleges. It was madness. It was crazy. But I think it was a wonderful environment to encourage entrepreneurship and give a sense that underdogs can change the world, right? And to be part of that, transformational time, with really bright, energized people, probably impacted more people's lives than I really fully understood at the time.
Yeah, totally. Same here. And it's funny. What's funny is the theme of retail innovation seems to have stayed the same in our career paths too. So pretty cool to see. So Trevor, why don't you, in your own words, if you want to please share with the audience your background, in particular your most recent work through Perch, which I believe gives you just a really unique vantage point, to think about retail media. So please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. We talked about that first company, Trilogy, and what that was really all about was enabling e-commerce 25 years ago in 1998. Yeah. And, we would charge $250,000 to build a shopping cart, right? Like just a shopping cart module, right? And now you get like all that and a catalog and everything out of Shopify for $9.99, right?
Yeah.
But it was that first internet boom. And then I went to a company called Tantau doing like large scale internet gateway, infrastructure for wireless internet gateways. I spent some time in internet TV streaming in 2005. So I was really ahead of the curve there too. Too ahead of the curve, as it turned out. And I ended up starting my own company called LocalVox in 2010, which was using online marketing to drive people from online to in-store. So using Google Maps, social media, email, content, SEO. And, we built that to about over 100 people, 8-digit revenues, sold that to the Blackstone Group and merged it with the Yellow Page company. And we did that in 2014. And, that was about the time that Google Glass came out, right? Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, oh my God, imagine this physical world overlaid with digital information that's helpful and contextual. And you walk by and like, or the Yelp reviews for the restaurant, and here's a coupon, or at that time a Groupon for the spa. And, that's when I started thinking about this merging of kind of digital and physical, because ultimately LocalVox was using digital marketing to affect physical behavior. And, after I spent 2 years working for a Yellow Page company and all the fun that was, I kind of started looking around as to like, what would be my next gig? And I was excited about marketing tech and SaaS and this blending of physical and digital realities, or augmented reality, or mixed realities. And I walked into this company called Perch. And, Perch at the time was really kind of a product agency that was building these custom experiences where, you would pick up a product and it, at Joe Malone, there's this fragrance cabinet. It's still the most beautiful thing that we've done, where this intricate $30,000 fragrance cabinet, and that's not us. That's just what Joe Malone pays for its cabinetry.
Sure.
But it had a screen in the back, and when you picked up the fragrance, behind it would animate into honeysuckle and lemon or sage and wood, and it was just so gorgeous. And I was like, yes, this is the merging of the physical world and the digital world, and we don't need Google Glasses. We can, but like, we need to take it and instead of being experiential, like, how do we scale this, right? And so I said, let's do this for like consumer packaged goods, and all the, all the like designers were like, wait, like, we like doing our animation stuff. No, they weren't exactly like that, but so I came in, I kind of re-architected the platform for mass market. And, just kind of the fundamental understanding that like 87% of us start our product investigation online because that's where the content is. And ultimately, you can't get that content in store. So what we do is, you can kind of think of digital signage, but I hate digital signage because most digital signage is like a banner ad, and we'll talk about that. And this actually uses computer vision to detect which products you pick up or put down, almost like as if you clicked on a product online.
Sure.
Let's bring in the videos, the ratings, the reviews, everything you need to make a decision. And that's one way to think about it, is just providing the right product information the moment you touch or click a product. The other way to think about it is, we are instrumenting the clicks on the shelf as if that's an e-commerce site. And we can see how content changes the way you click. So what's the right video when you pick up a Band-Aid to make you pick up Neosporin? We can measure that.
That's
and so really, it's about, kind of shining a light into what is a black box of in-store retail. And, overall, to me, when I think about my journey, since you asked, is, I've recently been thinking as part of this, like, what is my mission, right? And, I think COVID actually clarified it for me. Is, we've been talking about all these technologies to like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could just order stuff and it would, arrive at our door. We never had to go outside, and like, we could live in our little pods and do VR. And like, we had that in COVID, and it was terrible. And I think, we need to actually be building technology that recognizes that we are physical beings, and that enhances the physical world in a way that, creates happiness rather than takes it away, which, all the studies show the more you use TikTok, Instagram, any of these tools, the less happy you get, right? How do we apply technologies that are additive, that improve our lives and improve our happiness, that actually do connect us either to brands we love or to each other? And, that's where I'm really kind of focusing my mission, and Perch is part of that.
That's pretty awesome, Trevor. And I think, the point you made about COVID changing the way we think about tech and how that influences us, I think almost all of us have gone through some realization of that, like not connected to retail, but like what COVID did was, for me personally, we had a number of Zoom sessions with family members cooking together. We never did that before. But, you can, take that into the retail world. Frankly, any experience, whether it's shopping, it's learning, or what have you. Great point, and just amazing background. And really that tees us up for today's conversation. And, your background and kind of your passion for the space has got me really excited about the topic as well. So for the benefit of the audience, today's topic is, again, the future of retail media in the context of physical stores. I also want to clarify, Trevor, you know that, like, most of the audience here are in the Amazon ecosystem, Amazon or retail media ecosystem. So I want to clarify, Perch, the aggregator, is different from Perch Interactive, the company that Trevor has built, which is around digital shopper marketing.
I just so you know, I did call the CEO and I told him that I thought his branding was confusing, and he also bit our font. I said, at least change the font. And of course, he's raising at $1 billion valuation. So, I wasn't going to start a legal war with him, but yeah, we're a different Perch.
Yes. So important clarity. So let's dive in. So this buzz about retail media, it's been around for 3-4 years now. What do you, from your standpoint, make of all of this?
Oh, it's about damn time, right? I mean, the retailers and the brands have been ceding margins to Amazon, to Facebook, to Google. they let themselves be disintermediated, not have a direct relationship with their customer. They let customers come in the store and walk out and just be like, I don't even know who that was. Like, who runs a business like this, right? And, it's a shame that, like, I mean, if you think about how much Amazon had to make before it really kind of got on their radar, right?
Sure.
We need to get to a point where retail can leverage technology and really drive the innovation. And I actually think that in-store is one of those ways that they have advantages. And I continuously hope as when I came into the retail business, everybody was talking about a retail apocalypse. And I was like, this is silly. Like, look at the numbers. And, it's just that retailers have not been able to monetize a lot of the assets they've had. And I think it's been a real wake-up call. COVID has certainly been a real wake-up call in terms of, shoring up like inventory, like which products do you have at which stores, and like pricing and supply chains and logistics, like, it's just too lax. And now we've got these kind of fundamental layers figured out around customer identity, products, data and reporting, and now marketing, right? And if you put these all together as foundational layers, you can start building really cool experiences. But, in many ways, COVID helped create a perfect storm where they could now innovate because they had to get the foundational layers correctly. And I think, direct to consumer and e-commerce only players had advantages there for a long time because they were all electronic, right? And, I talked to a friend at Banana Republic who was talking about how difficult they had to roll out a new point of sale because they couldn't get internet at some of their stores. It's like, and this was like 4 or 5 years ago. Like, you're like, it's 2015, man. Like, really? So, these foundational layers are setting the path for, I think, much more accelerated innovation, especially around in-store. And retail media is the obvious one because you're taking advantage of audiences. There's clear monetization metrics, and the growth has been rapid.
Yeah. And so, to your point, when you look at the relative sizes and relative advantages, right? So Amazon, I was looking up some stats. They get about 2.5 billion visitors or visits a month, I think. And Walmart is around 400 or so. But then when you look at physical stores, right, Walmart has 5,000 stores approximately, I think, in the US. Amazon, if you through Whole Foods, is about 500. So you could just see those differences and distinct points of advantages, right? So one question I have is, the way I understand is retailers are low margin businesses, right? And perhaps that also gets in the way of aggressive tech and innovation investments. But how should, if you think about two classes of players in retail media, the pure play online ones like Amazon and Instacart, and everybody else whose real strength is physical stores like Walmart, Target, the list goes on. How should each of these categories play to their, especially the ones that where physical stores is their strength, how should they play that to their advantage going forward in retail media?
Yeah, so you hit on a key point, which is like where your audience is at, and it's very easy to go from Walmart to Amazon, right? It's pretty hard to go from inside a Walmart to where else, in, like you're gonna get in your car and drive to Target, like to the grocery store. I mean, like that the switching cost is high. And if you look at it, there's a study by Insider Intelligence that showed that like online audiences represent less than 20% of fast moving consumer goods brands' total customer base. So, and then you think about in store, they are shopping, right? How many, how many people hit your website and then bounce? A lot, right? A good number. How many people are in a Walmart and leave with an empty basket? Like none, right? So the value of being so close to the product and so close to the point of sale and knowing that you're gonna complete that. I think they're also much more valuable audiences. And so, I think, look, the thing about digital is it's so easy to scale. Esther Dyson called the internet a great, like copy machine, right? You can copy content, you can, these things are so easy to scale. Like you build a piece of infrastructure, you can put it on every page. Now you have a screen. Well, screen in a physical store, like that costs money, that like you have to run power, you have to, put it in, there's maintenance and all these other things. The physical world is hard, right? I think about, what puts the hard in hardware.
Yeah.
And it's costly, and it's, you have to maintain it. And you have to be thoughtful because you can't change it all the time, because it's got real atoms and physical. However, the audiences are much more valuable. And so, in-store was always going to kind of like, lag some of the innovation of online. But, if you think about, okay, great, I see an ad for a brand. Where can I buy that brand? Let's say it's Johnson Johnson. Let's say it's a Neutrogena ad, just because I got, Johnson Johnson's a client. Where can I buy Neutrogena products? Literally everywhere, right? I can buy them at the grocery store. I can buy them online. I can go to CVS. I can go, all these different places. And so that ad can influence my buying on lots of different touch points. However, if you're Amazon, you can only look at the Amazon ecosystem, right?
True.
Walmart has online, in-store, the ability to attribute in multi-paths of the journey. And I think that is a real big advantage on the data side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're on Walmart online, there's a good chance you're going to Walmart in store. There's a lot of correlation there. And, in grocery, 94% of sales happen in store. So, okay, build your retail media network, show some advertising, but did you affect that 94% of sales that have to happen in store? If you're not making that connection, you're really losing out on attribution. So totally. I think that's where we've just got to get a lot better.
Totally makes sense. Like my own purchase behavior in our house, kids get on the Target app, place some orders, and one of them tells me, "Dad, you need to go pick up that order." I drive up. They have this great app, and someone puts it in my trunk. I'm right back, right? So that, to your point, that connection between shopping online, but ultimately physical interaction is happening everywhere. And how much are these retailers going to exploit that is probably going to determine how big their opportunity is going to get.
And great, right? Like, what percentage of time do you go to Target and then walk in the store?
Not me personally, not very often, but
but your kids
I do that.
Good at ordering.
Yeah.
I'm constantly like, I need lemons. I need Like I shop at Trader Joe's, but I will only eat Hellman's mayonnaise. I will not eat whatever that is not that it's bad. It's just not Hellman's. So right. Like the number one reason retailers open up BOPUS is to, obviously reduce the cost of delivery, which is unsustainable in a lot of categories like grocery, but also second is to drive them into the store, right?
Totally.
And all of that attribution modeling is only starting to begin. That's why, you look at Kroger's earnings, they focus on rewards, right? We want you signed up for rewards so we can understand that Trevor in store is the same as Trevor online, and I have a full purchase history.
Isn't that fascinating?
And this is becoming real.
Yeah. So basically, loyalty programs as a mechanism to track your interaction across all formats.
100%. I mean, Target will give you 2% cash back to do it, right? On everything. And
by the way, Amazon is taking it much further with their buy with Prime, right? So you can stick a buy with Prime on any of your D2C sites, and and there's a reason why they're doing that.
Yeah. And if you look at, kind of which of the retail media networks have like the highest ROI, it's very most focused on like, those who can leverage large, kind of scale in store as well, especially on higher price point items. Like they did a path to purchase study, and the number one highest ROI retail media network was Best Buy, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, it's obviously the price point, but also, just being able to kind of look at those two journeys where electronics has so much online penetration, and the ability to also drive it in store is just massive for them.
So let's just shed some light on kind of physical store media formats, Trevor, because you're exposed to a lot of this. So can you walk the audience through some examples of formats you're starting to see?
Yeah, and I think it's like, realistically, I think it's kind of like early internet and banner ads, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like the media formats are basic, right? What can you deploy to everything? Well, video,
Yeah.
right? So ton of video. In fact, like if you look at the surveys of like what percent have placed ads in store, there's like one for ads and there's one for videos. Like videos, is its own line item because like it's just easy. We know how to do that. And there's an organization online called the IAB, who you obviously know, but
Yep.
like they have standard ad formats of what can be served. So all the people who serve ads can easily traffic in these things.
Yep.
What does interactive ads look like in store? I don't know.
Yeah.
What are the standards there? What are the best ways to represent buttons to increase interaction? What data can you gather? What do you do if you have connectivity? What if you don't have connectivity? How do you think about syncing media? How do you sync to the point of sale? Like there's just so many issues that haven't really been figured out.
Yeah.
So, to me, there's a lot of just screens, right? And it's your standard 16:9, and one of the digital signage publications is called 16:9, right? Like, and like it's like whatever you think you can do on that. Most of it is not interactive. A lot of it is like updated still with a USB, and it's like battery operated. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I think
hard to be personalized. It doesn't recognize you or your intent. Those are all challenges in the physical store.
Yeah, and that's changing right now. So we have front-facing cameras, that can tell your demographic and play different for male, female, old Gen X like me and you, and versus millennial and Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
Which we've been testing and we see vastly different response rates. So you can kind of target. I would call it target rather than personalized.
Sure.
I think the other formats that are becoming interesting are electronic shelf labels. So these are the thin strips that you see on the shelves. Much more popular in Europe because getting pricing right, there are actually stricter regulations that if you don't do the price right, it's really punitive, but also because the cost of labor is much higher. And so the cost of changing those prices is much higher. Now this is starting to flip. This is in Carrefour and, Walgreens Boots, and, there's a company called Pricer who's, implementing it to all, large store footprints. We saw it crack in the North America region last year with Best Buy Canada, working with Pricer. And then this year, Walmart announced in March a deal with SAS and Magotech. And I think we're going to see electronic shelf labels come into their own over the next 12, 24 months. And that's going to be a new media format because it's not just, it's thin, so you can't do too much. But you can put a QR code, a price, and some basic animations.
Interesting.
And I think there are going to be new ways that you can leverage screens that, like, if I'm interacting for screen, I find a product, like what if the ESL, that electronic shelf label, would animate right to where your product is. So you'd be like, oh, it's right over here. Those type of things. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. I think a lot of it's going to be focused on couponing and savings. Other media formats, interactive shopping carts, starting to see some interesting traction there. I'm not that bullish about it right now because if you've ever seen what people do to shopping carts, like, you don't want to put electronics anywhere near them, right? Like babies, dogs, spilling water all over it. And the price is too high, but long term, I think that's going to be good. There's also retail media BOPIS lockers, right? So the challenge goes back to standardization. How do we scale this? How do we buy it? How do I know I'm having an impact? How do we not make the overhead in trafficking a campaign so high that you deplenish all the value of the media campaign itself?
Yeah. If I was a brand in this environment, like what are some brands that are doing it really well, and just what are the characteristics? Like what are they doing differently from others to really exploit this this trend?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because I mean, one of the things, is like how does digital actually help the shopper experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would ask you, like, tell me, how are your ads traffic down Amazon helping my Amazon experience? Go, like give me a good answer. I'm dying.
I think the one thing I would say is that there are good question, but I think one thing I'll say though is that there are creative ad formats, right? Speak about the product more in depth. For example, video formats. Hopefully, educate a customer about a product. Product detail pages full of ads. I'm not sure. All right.
Yeah, and look, I think you could argue that with the data that we have, creating a marketplace where people are willing to bid, you almost bid based upon likelihood of conversion, right?
Correct.
So you're helping to match brands who are most likely to convert with their shoppers versus whatever's organic on the page, which could be based on ratings and reviews and some other ancillary things. So you could argue there's some matching, but the more ads you put on my Google search page, the less I get to the Google search results, right?
Yep.
And, I think one of the things we have to figure out is how do we provide value, right? Yeah. And, like you mentioned, if I'm on a PDP and I'm here, don't buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that. No, I'm just trying to figure out if this thing is right for me. And so we really need to think about, kind of what's the right experience. And so going back to your question of like, who's doing digital in store well?
Yeah.
Right now, when I talk to my colleagues, whether it's Rethink Retail's Top 100 or others, we're talking about people like Nike and Zara and others. And, a lot of where they're focused on is the buying process and utilities. So I want to book a fitting room. I do that on my mobile and not have to wait online and then calls me when I'm ready. That's pretty great. Amazon has their fashion store where you're like, okay, I don't have to even bring the clothes with me. I just say, just scan this shirt. I want to see it in a medium and a large, and I'll meet you in the fitting room in 15 minutes.
Yep.
They have personalization tools. So if you want to, customize your sneakers, those type of things. But it's a lot about buying utilities and BOPIS, and it's not in store, but I can buy it and skip the line at Zara. And it's a little bit less about product selection.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of the next frontier, which is like, how do we align these advertising incentives to steal the sale, to capture market share with improving the shopper experience? And, it's kind of like the Google ads, like, first page of Google is all ads these days. Like,
70% or more on a mobile device, right?
Yeah.
And it's been that way for a little while now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think one of the challenges as we look at the evolution of this, is how do we balance this revenue, this high margin revenue, with, destroying our experience, right? So I'll give you a stat.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and this is very attainable. Retail media networks, if they increase grocery revenues just by 4.3%, 4.3, they double profits for a grocery store. Double.
Wow. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you look at the assumptions, totally reasonable to drive an additional 4.3% in revenue, but it's 80% margins, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be this really big incentive to turn our shopping experiences into Times Square. And I think, as you look at it, there's got to be this balance where you're like, oh, I'm going to build it up. And then shoppers start complaining. And then you're like, I don't want to go to that site because it's got blinky text all over it and like all that 1998 stuff that we dealt with.
I think, I would say that, just to add to that, I would say that is a unique constraint of retail media in general, because yes, Google had to contend with search result experience against ads, and so did Facebook to a certain extent, but not really as much as these retailers have to, right? I'm pretty sure Amazons of the world are constantly doing this testing between ad revenue versus decline in conversion rate, and where is that balance, and so on and so forth. That actually is a unique challenge for everyone in retail media. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
And, but what's interesting is the testing and feedback is instantaneous, right?
True.
Whereas when you deal with the physical world and you install too many screens,
yep,
then what happens? Now you got to uninstall screens or change the screens, and so I think it's going to be more incremental. It's not going to be as fast. But I think, it's going to be to the incremental point where you get negative feedback, and then we're going to have to pull it back. And I think the other opportunity is, retailers need to realize that they can't just sell their shoppers to other people.
Yes.
They should be selling their shoppers to themselves, right?
Yep.
How do if I'm Kroger, how do I get you in the Kroger ecosystem?
Yep.
If I'm Walmart, right? And you take some allergy medicines, right? Like you pick up an allergy medicine, Perch wakes up and says, don't buy this, don't buy this. No. If you're thinking about allergy, why not schedule with the allergist at a Walmart health clinic?
Totally.
How do I get you deeper into the ecosystem? And so you're actually looking at lifetime value, you're looking at retention of the client, you're thinking of this much more holistically. And I think the real challenge with all of this is it's super easy to measure an ad, right? Click-through rate, conversion rate, margin on the item, return on ad spend, like I'm not even in that world, and I know a lot of the metrics, and I'm sure the metrics you look at are much more, you can look at, velocities and accelerations on clicks and shares and virality and blah, 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 blah. How do you measure in-store experience? And how does one little thing change the overall metric of the audience, right? Like online, this little thing affected exactly these number of people. Let's just measure these people. And it's harder
to do that.
And it's slower. And I think, retailers have been reluctant to take chances. And now they're at a point where they have to. And they see that there's so much upside that they've left on the table, that now is the time. Start testing.
And a lot of the retailers, these are low margin businesses. So it's not like, they could just do all kinds of expensive experiments. They don't have that leeway either in most cases. So
I don't know if Walmart how many billions of dollars does Walmart lose on e-commerce every year, right? Like, that's the other kind of like perverse thing about, stores and online, right? Which is, we keep on funneling money into this loss leader. And it's like, hey, by the way, forget the fact that 85% of transactions are in store. All of the profits are in store. Like, what are you doing, right? Come on, guys.
Trevor, I want you to share the stat. I heard, or I've seen one of your PowerPoints about media spend as a percent versus purchases as a percent. What can you share with the audience the stat?
Yeah, only 1% of digital media is spent where 85% of transactions occur.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. And I remember, I don't know if Mary Meeker's, State of the Internet report was always the biggest thing. And one of the biggest graphs was always right at the beginning was like, how much time do we spend on each channel and how much advertising revenue is there? And like, if there was less advertising revenue proportionally the amount of time spent, we knew that was going to grow to catch up.
Totally.
Similarly, like 1%, 85, right? And so, I think the physical world is, just a huge opportunity. I think about e-commerce. Like, I don't know what you guys are going to do with e-commerce. It's going to be great. It's going to be iterative. Like, you've squeezed a lot out of that already. It's going to be iterative improvement. I think you're going to see revolutionary improvements in store, whether it's profitability, data gathering. Like, literally, the store is a black box. They barely know what's happening in traffic, let alone which products people pick up. Why do people pick up this product and convert at 10%, and they pick up this product and convert at 20%? No one knows because they're not measuring that, right?
Yep.
We're going to learn so many things by shining a light into the store. And I think, whether it's the profitability, the economics, the technologies, the cost of hardware going down, 5G connectivity, lighting up the store, the fact that we're building stores with power all over because hey, the world runs on electricity. Everything's kind of happening for these foundational layers to occur. And that's what gets me jazzed.
Totally. And I mean, even Amazon, right? They're running 7-8 different store format experiments right now as we speak. So there's that happening as well. So
and it's going to be really interesting to see, right? Because Amazon closed down their 4-star stores, they closed down their bookstores. They're all in on Amazon Go, and they're expanding that out. They have this, their revenues as much come from enabling other retailers and brands.
True.
And so I think they have aspirations to sell this to other retailers, but other retailers are never going to give up their SKU data and customer data and transaction data to do that. So they're focused on travel retail and non-competitive. But I think there's some really interesting things that they're doing with measurement of media and changing activity on the shelf based upon Amazon Go data. There's a lot of talk about them enabling retail media networks at Whole Foods, which if you walked into Whole Foods, you're not going to find a digital screen anywhere, right? And that's starting to change. And ultimately, if you look at that, Whole Foods as an acquisition, their revenues went down. Their in-store revenues went down. Even during COVID, right? When grocery was as hot as could be. And I don't know if Amazon gets in-store retail. And I don't fully understand what they're missing. I don't know they're going to be the ones that crack it, to be honest. But I think if you look at what Walmart and Target are doing, they have both the scale to amortize these big bets on technology across a large number of stores. I think that's pretty exciting. If you look at what they're doing in terms of their retail media networks and combining in store and online, I mean, it's so early. It's so
very early.
I don't want to call it prehistoric, but when I think about what they could do with that, I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Walmart has and this is a stat that I've seen multiple times, 95% household coverage in the country or something like that. I mean, imagine that reach. I want to ask you a question, Trevor, that I think a lot of brands we work with think about, right, in one form or fashion, which is, you've got Amazon, which is a behemoth when it comes to just retail media tonnage, right? They made 35 billion or whatever last year. And the rest of the retailers combined are smaller. If I were a brand, how should I think about deploying resources to manage this full spectrum of the retail media network?
Yeah, I mean, look, you kind of go where the dollars are spent. So spending money on Amazon, I mean, that makes sense. That's what you do. But what we've learned along the way is if you're early on in an emerging network, often you get kind of outsized gains, right? When Ashton Kutcher joined Twitter really early and dared CNN to the first to 1 million users, he became a media icon, right? And I think the early people on TikTok advertising, I saw their CPCs and CPAs, and I was like, whoa, wow! I mean, it's 3 times better than what you were getting on Instagram. But it was more work and it was harder because the tools weren't as advanced. And I think you've got to think about a little bit about that. I think that's where we are with in-store media, and I think and I think you had mentioned this, one of the biggest challenges for people joining some of these networks is there's just not enough audience. There's not enough, targeted people within your category.
I mean, it ties right back to online traffic, right? So it's, your ad inventory is a direct proportion of traffic. And, certainly relative to Amazon, almost every other retailer is smaller. And strategically, they may not even be a focus to drive that volume up, right? And if you look at what Amazon does, it's not just shopping, it's Prime Video, it's Twitch, it's all kinds of stuff that they're surrounding the shopper with. And so that makes you keep coming back, and it drives up traffic and time spent on site, all of which is like, drives advertising inventory, which these retailers don't yet have, at least most of them don't yet have.
Yeah, and you announced recently being part of the Walmart network, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And you shared earlier some numbers. Like, is it a big enough network to do meaningful throughput on your ad budgets?
I think that great question. I think there are specific categories where it is very, very meaningful, and so it just depends on who you are as a brand. And then frankly, they are putting so much investment into bringing honestly more participation, not just from the shopper side, but from the seller side as well. So my answer would be absolutely, perhaps not as big as Amazon just yet, but meaningful for sure. So
yeah, and I imagine it falls off. I mean, Instagram has Instacart has built $1 billion business on the retail media spend. But I think people need to use tools like yours, right? Like where it's just like, yes, click, checkbox Amazon, checkbox Walmart, and as much as possible, convert the creatives so I don't have to think about it. Now, for in-store, that's just not going to be the case, right? However, you already have a sunk cost as a brand for marketing in store. You have a sales team, you have shopper marketing teams. You're worried about the planogram, and the planogram you're redesigning every 2 to 3 months, and you're so deeply ingrained in the operations, and you've got a whole group doing that. And meanwhile, you've got a whole nother group on national advertising, right? That's doing something different, right? I think ultimately, if these teams start talking together and they start adopting technology, whether it's like Perch, where we're looking at traffic, we're looking at demographic, we're looking at what things people click on the planogram, we're overturning. Like if you ask anybody, like, where do you put your best products on the planogram on an end cap? They'll all say eye level, right? And often center. Well, the answer is actually the edges are better. Eye level is still good, but the edges are the best.
Interesting.
And nobody knows this. But if we get the national advertisers to look at media in store, if you look at it on a cost per click basis, where picking up a product is a click, we're actually half the price, 2/3, 1/3 of the price of Facebook or Instagram or Google. And when you start looking at these media metrics and say, okay, what does it mean for the advertising organization to start talking to the in-store shopper marketing? And I got to be honest, these are completely different cultures. I live on data. I live on metrics. I live on scale. Shopper marketers, I live on relationships. I live on programs that are, organized 3 to 6 months in advance. How do you bring these two worlds together? And how do we leverage the money from advertising, not just to get better impressions where I think the audiences are most valuable, at the bottom of the funnel, in front of your product, 20 feet from the point of sale? How do you use that money to tighten your relationships with your strategic retailers where 85% of transactions occur? How do you use it to get more data? Because you don't actually even know what's going on in the store or how people shop, to give you a distinct advantage. How do you leverage that experience here to pull data out so we can leverage first-party data back in the national advertising world? These are the big questions. And I think if you're running a brand and you've got this kind of siloed organization, I think it's very difficult to really be thoughtful about how you merge them together, because there's different cultures, different metrics, different worlds, different processes, relationships versus relationships with technology. And, it's not like you can't, like Sephora actually mixed they took their online and their in-store departments, which are completely separate. They put them together.
Wow.
Didn't really work. They separated them again.
Interesting.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
It's that's a great point, and probably cannot overemphasize ever just the importance of like org structure design to align, these, I think, groups with seemingly different objectives, really, right? Great point. I think it doesn't get talked about enough. So Trevor,
Yeah,
just
and if you think about it, it's like, but before just to hit on that, it's like, if you give your money to Facebook, what do you get? Nothing. You barely get a call back. I mean, you know, or Google, like, it doesn't matter how much you spend on Google, like
Yeah.
what they look at is how much your budget is increasing. And that's how much, like, you know, how much attention they give you.
Sure.
But if you give your money to Kroger, what do you get? You get better data, better, you know, placement in store.
Yeah.
You know, you get better, you know, kind of organization around logistics, better SEO and other ways that you can kind of promote your products both online, better visibility all around. Like, these are your kind of strategic outlets. At least the same with Amazon, I imagine. It's like, you spend money with Amazon where you're actually selling the product versus a media company who can offer you nothing other than media.
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be more strategic ways you can spend your money. And I think retailers can fill that void.
Totally. So Trevor, I'm going to wrap this up with kind of a future question, crystal ball question. Like, if we were to dial forward 3 years, 5 years, and we both walked into a store that has been serious about retail media, what would that universe look like, you think?
Oof, 3 years is really
Short.
slow.
That's true. That is true. That is true.
I think we're going to start really getting it right in that 3 to 5 year period. But the next 3 years, it's going to be a lot of blinky text and ads at you. I think the smarter retailers who really look at customers and data, and Kroger, by the way, has a whole performance marketing group called 8451.
Yep.
Albertsons does performance media group. And look, they're going to be distracted by the cash, you know, like cash corrupts us. And the size of this opportunity is just massive. It fundamentally takes all that money you've been thrown away at Facebook and Google and brings it back into the retail ecosystem. Yeah. And then that money can be used to update the store experience, right? Yep. I think you're going to start, you're going to see electronic shelf labels. You're going to see really tight integration with the mobile phone. And so, you know, you're going to be able to see things. We failed at beacons. Beacons was so exciting, right? And then, you know, what happened? We just like pushed the ads down your throat. You know, everybody's like, I don't want this.
I don't want it.
Right. And I think retail media is going to follow the kind of same thing. But what about, you know, if I picked up, you know, this product, right, and it sent a coupon to my phone because I know which product you picked up because I have that intelligence with computer vision. What if, you know, I scan the QR code and put it on my Christmas wish list, right? You know, I think we're going to see electronic shelf labels at scale in 3 years, 3 to 5 years, and that's going to open up media. I think we're going to see brands start shifting budgets to less, you know, well, a lot of blinky, you know, blinky text and interruptive, non-interactive media. But I think they're also going to really be looking at how do I educate customers in store and connect to that mobile phone. I think we're going to see attribution of online and in store. And I think with the metrics that we look at right now are just kind of weird, right? Yeah. So if I buy online and pick up in store, that's an online purchase.
Totally.
But if I go in store and then purchase it for online, that's also an online purchase. Right? Like, that's not consistent. Well, why are we doing that? Well, the street wants us to maximize our growth of e-commerce, right? As these worlds blur together, I think it's going to be unhealthy to keep doing that. And I have a friend named Stephen Dennis of Sageberry Consulting, and he talks about this as kind of harmonized retail. And, you know, I think we're going to need a different set of metrics. We're going to look at things differently. I think it's going to be much more intelligent. It's going to be much more personal. Every retailer is going to know who I am with my mobile phone. And it's going to be because it offers me value, not because I get more banner ads because of it.
Totally.
And that we're going to have a bumpy couple years. It's going to be great for cash. It's going to be great for P&Ls. And then we're going to get a little bit of pullback. And then I think, you know, the first feedback from the customer, like this isn't quite working the way we want it to, is going to drive people to really focus on that shopper experience. And I think just a lot of things like headless commerce systems and other things are going to be at the right place at the right time to help put it all together. And you know, I think about random things. I think about like Nike has this scavenger hunt thing that they do on their mobile phones, but they never send people in store on the scavenger hunt. I'm like,
interesting.
Like, you could like one of the pieces of the scavenger hunt is you got to scan the QR code next to the LeBron shoe, like, or scan the LeBron shoe, and send 1,000 people into the Nike store. Like, you could do some really interesting things around the shopper journey holistically, and I think that's going to be generated by digital messaging, both in store and online. And I think it's going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Trevor, this has been a fascinating conversation. Loved your perspective on where the space is going. Lots of excitement. And I think the one headline stat that it's hard for me to forget is 1% of media spent is where 85% of purchases happen. And I think that reflects just the broad opportunity that exists for retail media in the context of physical stores. Trevor, thank you for taking the time. Always a pleasure, and hope to connect with you soon again in a similar conversation. Again, thanks so much.
Sounds great. Great to reconnect and be a part of this revolution in front of us. So
absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Take care.